All on the word breathe. Be sure you're unmuted, Theo. Here we go. And up a half step. Go. Up a half step. And one more. Okay, and we'll do coming down on follow. Every note your best note. Vibrato evenly on everything. Ready? Up on the upper D flat. Begin. Go. Up half step. Go. Up a half step. Go. And one more, everyone. Go. We are on EO. Ready? And go. And up. Stay up basses. One more. Now the basses can drop down. Two more. And finally, okay, there we go. So we're going to get going now. I think we have to go to two separate rooms, a breakout room for the guys, and I think I keep the sopranos and altos tonight.
Right. Okay, off we go.
Hello, gentlemen. Look, John Sereno sent. Oh, there he is. I thought he just sent his living room, but he's back. He's back. I'm going to share a file in the chat if I can figure out how to do it. One second. Okay, so you should see that file in the chat for this meeting. Patricia will probably send it out later also. Yeah, any issues there? All right, so Brian posed this question, Brian Phillips posed this question back in the fall about how out of shape we likely are vocally and physically for some of us. So I took some time and spent a few months thinking about that in kind of an abstract way. And it was really nice to be able to pull together some resources and explore this in more depth over the last few days. So I have some links and some bullet points that we'll talk about, and I'll show you that on the screen so you can follow along. And my main point is just to give you some resources so that you can invest your own time and effort into getting yourself ready for the fall. To be honest, there's no real shortcut here. A lot of this is conditioning that we do as a matter of course, just by being in a chorus. But here we are not singing as much, not rehearsing as much repertoire, not having any discipline, and all those things are going to, of course, have negative effect. So any thoughts or questions before we dive in? It's just like school at Alderdice, you know, no one ever says anything. All right. All right.
Don't get us
Ian.
going with saying something. You will not be able to stop us anymore.
That is the problem. I'm so desperate for somebody to talk to me. I just beg my students to say something. All right, let me share my video with you. Let's see if I can do this right. Okay. So you should see my browser window, and it's a Word document in there. So let me start with this first section here, which has some general stuff that you have heard before, and you could probably provide a lot of this information yourself about good habits and stuff like that. The next one is more technical about how singing or developing more stamina and endurance with your instrument is almost all about breathing and support. There, of course, is a function for the pharynx, the part of the throat that right above the larynx that comes into play too. And we'll come back to that, including something I was discovering about singing through a straw. It's something I heard people talk about, but never investigated much. And then down here at the bottom are some links and a really cool thing you might enjoy experimenting with that I'll introduce to you at the end from the Complete Vocal Institute, whatever that is. Okay, so from the top, getting back into shape vocally. So if you're thinking about this, you should start doing it now. It would be good for you anyway. But definitely, over the summer and as you start thinking about getting back into singing real repertoire in bulk, then you need to start doing some conditioning. So at this point, anything you can do to use your voice in a productive way for a half hour a day would cover you. So one option would be to do some ear training. And this isn't the best for like quality vocal technique, because when you do ear training exercises, you're more focused on intervals, note names, chord patterns, things like that. So I have two here that you could look at, and I'm sure there are more. One of them is Thomas's favorite, musictheory.net. There's a bunch of stuff for background, just to teach you about how we write music, how intervals are constructed. But the magic for me comes down here in the ear training section. So let's see, let me try this one. It's probably, all right, it starts right away. So these are just little exercises, right? And it gives you a reference note and a question note, and you have to figure out what note that is. So this is do, and this is, well, you have to figure it out. Do, ti,
We,
la, so, fa.
We don't hear your
Connor,
computer
we don't hear
sound, John Eric.
your
All right.
computer audio.
Let me fix that. It was going so well too. Stop share, reshare, share sound. Got it. Cool. Thanks for yelling. Okay, so here's a reference note and then the question note. And you have to sort that out, right? Knowing that you start on do. Do, ti, la, so, fa. I guessed fa, and it immediately went to another exercise. So there's do. Here's the new question. Do, ti, la. And once I press la, it'll be either red or green. If it's green, it moves on to the next question. And I know that's so. I know that's me. I know that's do. And I'm off to the races. So with something like that, you could easily just kind of quiz your ability to recognize notes. There are a couple other ways you could approach that using identifying chords. Whoa, that's a great one. So it'll play a chord and you have to figure out what kind of chord it is. If you get into the settings, you can make it a little easier or a little harder and play around with it that way. But to be honest, you'd have to get in here and start doing stuff. So musictheory.net is a great place to go. Scroll all the way down to ear training. Another version of the same kind of process is an app that I actually have on my phone. I paid the $4 for it. It's a really good app, and it kind of sets up these kind of puzzles as a video game style thing. Let's see if I can find a example. So on a page like this, basically the app will play me an interval, either two notes separated like this, and I'd have to figure out that that's a perfect fourth, or sometimes at the same time, and then you have to figure it out from there. No, doo, doo, that's a perfect fifth. So if you're wrong, well, it just gives you a score, and you don't move on to the next level until you get better and better at it. This is a great app. Like I said, it is a few dollars once you get past the demo, but I enjoy playing with it. It's a good way to kill 10 minutes when you have some headphones and nothing else to do. So if you're curious about that, I would suggest that you explore either of these two links here or other ones if you have some suggestions. So other than ear training, you could do some sight reading exercises too. Ben had some great resources. Maybe you could even share that in the chat if that's something we could access. Another suggestion is to borrow a hymnal. Borrow a hymnal. You have to take it back to that church at some point. But churches are really eager to see people. So if you called one and asked to borrow a hymnal, I bet you they'd be happy to lend you one. Browse your own choral music library or stuff that you've had before. You can find tons of free scores online, including semi-legal ones that you could sing along with popular choral pieces, So don't be afraid to poke around. One of the best ways to search is to add PDF to any piece you want. So Mozart, Dies Irae, PDF, and it'll throw me scores that I can download really quite easily. The last is another app or website. I don't use it as an app, but I do use this with my students at school. It's called Sight Reading Factory. And the website is conveniently called sightreadingfactory.com. You can go here and do some practicing and see how the app works. And if you like it, I think you can, pay probably under $5 to get like an individual account. I use these with my students at school, and there are sight reading exercises that are automatically generated based on whatever criteria you put in. And then they can try them over and over and over again until they get one that they feel like they did a good job on. So for you, if you went to sightreadingfactory.com right now, you would just click through these menus. You're a vocalist. You would be a real singer. You would probably pick level 1 or 2 to keep it simple. I'm going to go with 1 just to show you how easy it can be. Easy key signatures, easy time signatures, easy key signatures. So there's two options here. Free play lets you hear it first and then sing it back and kind of coaches you through it. But the challenge is kind of nice if you want to push yourself. So the deal here is that you get a timer, 30 seconds, to analyze an exercise. And you can see I have a bunch of free ones remaining, and then I'm either going to have to subscribe or do something. But as I look at it, I have to analyze whether I have repeating notes, rising or falling notes, rests or skips in later exercises. I get my starting note up here. I'm going to change this tempo. I don't want that. All right. And then whenever I'm ready, whenever my timer runs out, it will record me. Here it goes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. And then this is the cool part. And this is really what you need when you're doing some sight reading, is to get the feedback. You can play this with your part included. So it has my recording and the piano part. Let's see if it works. Well, in this case, when I changed the tempo, I messed it up. So, but anyway, they do work. It works quite well when I don't mess it up like that. So it's a way to check if you match the pitch while it happens. So anyway, that's another option for you. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Sight Reading Factory. I may even have some free accounts left that I could give you from my school since I don't have a huge program this year. So Sight Reading Factory. The next suggestion was a good one that I don't do, but I really should. And that is to make a playlist of songs that I know I sing well and sing them on a regular basis. I don't reinvest in stuff that I've done before. I usually prepare it for an event, sing it, and move on. That's not really a very professional approach as a singer, but as a chorister, it's perfect. Sing along with YouTube warm-ups. So this is fraught with, what do you say, YouTube garbage, really. There's a ton of stuff out there, and most of them are trying to sell you something. So pick some free stuff. It's just a little warm-up exercise. You don't have to pay for anything, but you can. Just don't start giving money to, some corporate producer that made these videos. If it's not somebody that's going to give you actual feedback on what you actually sing, don't put money into it, right? If it's just a YouTube video, then just use it for a YouTube video. Try not to overthink it. If you're really getting into it and you really like somebody, then great. You may want to invest in that. But I don't myself. I would much rather hear from somebody individually and give me some feedback. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the stuff that's out there in this category as we dig into this more technical aspect. But I would love to get any feedback that you might have at this point about, or questions about ear training, sight reading, a playlist, or doing, well, warm-ups we'll get to in a minute. Any questions, comments, suggestions? All that stuff would be great.
Yeah, thanks for the resources.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Okay, all right. So let me show you then some of the stuff. Oh, question?
Yes, the stuff that you've been in your, what we've been seeing that you produced for us, can you distribute that?
This document that you're seeing with the links on it?
Exactly.
Yeah, I shared that in the chat for this meeting. And Patricia will likely email it out afterward.
Okay.
Okay.
I think I heard that.
Okay, so so I'm going to show just a little bit of a video here, and you should try it. You should experiment and see if this is something you could do. I know some people that are, doing workouts just by following videos and things like that. It has some appeal. It can be a bit limiting because it's not really a live event and no one really cares if you watch. But at the same time, it can be really useful to push you a little further down the road. So I would suggest, if you're curious about this, that you just do a Google search. I thought I had this described here somewhere. So just do a Google search for like daily, oh, here, I put it up here, daily vocal warm-ups. And I did that, and this is what I got. So this is just a search on YouTube for daily vocal warm-ups. So I see a bunch of these, and look, millions of people check these out. I mean, how bad can they really be? The thing I like about them is that it's about 20 minutes of singing. So that's worth it. They're probably going to teach you something or explain something. And they make a bunch of these. So if you were to follow this link here, you would see hundreds of these videos that you could peruse for free. And every one would tell you to subscribe or sign up for or pay for something. You don't have to do that. So here's just some guy, I don't know. But again, almost 1 million people have checked out his video. So you'll get something out of that. We're going to watch a little something from this guy. He's pretty good. He's calm and seems to have some credibility. Let me say it that way. So like I said, there's tons of these things, and you could get whatever you're really looking for, right? And most important, that you're getting a personality that you can tolerate for more than a 5-minute warm-up. So where did I go with this? I can't make this little thing go away. This little sharing window. There we go. I'm going to come back to that. Okay, so here we are. So just watch a little bit. The beginning of this sounds like a commercial. There's music in the background. It's a little distracting, actually, but he kind of introduces what the lesson is. And then it will fast forward a little bit, and you can see where he's demonstrating a technique and talking about something. The stuff that he's talking about is what you need if you're concerned about your voice being out of shape. The worst thing we do is not support. And if you can do one thing over the summer, it's train yourself to sing with more better breathing and more support. So let's just watch a little bit and see what this guy's all about.
Hour before you even begin.
And she's on my mind, like all the time.
Take a deep breath. Seriously, right now, take a deep breath.
I'm going to do that too.
Now, if your shoulders did this, then you're already robbing yourself of 25 to 50% of your vocal power before you even begin to sing. Quick, watered down anatomy lesson. The diaphragm is the muscle that resides within our rib cage. It's the main muscle that allows us to breathe. So it's like a suction or a pump. You can kind of think of it that way. So when it moves down, it draws air into our lungs and we can breathe. When it moves up, it helps to release air or push air out. Air in, air out. Get the idea? Most singers that come to my studio for the first time utilize far too much of their accessory breathing muscles when inhaling. This means that you're already tight before you begin, and you're only utilizing the upper portion of your lung capacity when most of your lung tissue is not only lower, but also in the back. So it's a really inefficient use of your respiratory system. So the solution is to learn to breathe low and utilize the longer, stronger muscles of the torso to draw the breath in low into the lungs and help the diaphragm to expand, thus releasing the throat and releasing a whole bunch of tension. And eventually we can utilize this to also lower our larynx and release that as well, giving us more space and more vocal freedom and blah, blah, blah. One important note is that the goal right now is not necessarily to strengthen the diaphragm. The diaphragm has been working for as long as you've been born. It's the only way that we can breathe. So all breathing is diaphragmatic in the sense that the diaphragm has to move in order for us to breathe. So when we inhale, the diaphragm moves down, helping to draw air into the lungs. When we exhale, the diaphragm moves up. That action is happening 24/7. So the goal is to maximize the diaphragm's movement and to free it, to liberate it. Because for most people, the diaphragm doesn't move as much as it should. So by training the muscles that surround it, we can open the body up and allow for the full release of the diaphragm. Today's lesson is about the 360-degree breath. Mastering this breath will relax your throat, reduce nasality in your tone, help to blend your registers, and bring greater resonance. It will also aid in the protection of your voice, and it will improve your range. It's fundamental and it's important for any singer of any voice type, of either sex, of any genre. If you use your voice professionally, you need to know this. And by golly, I'm using this hand a lot, but whatever. Let's move on. We're gonna approach the 10.
So, so you can tell, you know, it's just a guy probably a few years out of college, has a nice little studio, and he's trying to make a little side hustle here, which is great. He's got some information to share, but like I said, I don't know that I'd be pouring money into watching videos like this. This is nice, but it's not worth, you know, $5 a week or something, or let alone 40 or 50 for a voice lesson. Okay, so I do want you to follow along with this little bit that we're going to watch, and it's very, very basic stuff. But I want to come back to something that he's doing here and elaborate just a little bit and give you a cheat, if you will, but kind of something that I hang my hat on in terms of breathing. I really only do it well when we're doing concerts during rehearsals. As you know, our space is so awkward and those chairs are so strange that it's hard to have a decent posture for breathing. So let's just follow a little with this guy and stand up and do it along with us.
To make your, and instead of breathing like this, I want you to try to focus your breath to make your hand move forward like this. And then just let the breath out as normal. But I want you to really try to focus your breath and control it to where your stomach moves out, but your shoulders remain stable. I don't want...
Yeah, watch this again. So you'll see his stomach, his hand on his stomach moves out, but his shoulders stay quiet. And even more important, down here at his belt area, it's not like nothing is poking out there. His belly is kind of rising a little higher. It's not letting go of everything. So watch him breathe just a few more times here.
Control it
It's like a
to where
butt.
your stomach moves out, but your shoulders remain stable. I don't want this. No, it's
Above the belly button.
inhale slowly. Let's do 10. Do it with me. Just try your best. Okay, ready? 1, 2.
Keep your shoulders.
Shoulders relaxed.
Right.
3.
So I want to add
4.
something here. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second so you can see my body, and I want to add one layer to this. Okay, so if you're doing that and you're standing up this way, let me change my camera just a bit. If you had your hand on your belly button, you should be doing exactly what you saw. Right? Not this, where you're stretching upward and trying to stay skinny. Nobody needs to worry about that. So let it go. And then the second item is down below at your belt. If you were to hold a hand there, I'm going to switch them so you can see better, then you'll notice that this hand moves, this hand doesn't. So what that means is my inhalation is already supported down at the bottom at the pelvic floor area. So if you can get this stuff engaged while you expand here in the middle, while keeping your shoulders down, then you've got the most efficient inhalation you're going to get. And you're using your muscles to help support the sound that you're going to make when you're done breathing in. That's a tricky concept, but it's really important that you keep the support while you inhale. That way you don't have to rebuild the ship every time you start. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, can I say something?
Please, John.
One thing that just strikes me is that certainly he's correct that you shouldn't be breathing in a way where your shoulders are going like that, because in that case you're breathing with your lungs and you're not using your diaphragm.
Correct.
But in order to keep yourself from doing that, don't focus on pushing your shoulders down either. You know, I think that's an easy thing to get confused, and then you're going to lose all your support anyway.
Yeah.
I feel like he should probably have said something about that. I think I've worked with people in the past that have tried to keep your shoulders down, and it confuses your whole body. Like some people, if you have a lot of lung capacity, you know, like I'm breathing with my diaphragm, my shoulders are going to move up a little bit because I'm filling up with air. So don't force your shoulders down because it's unnatural and it won't help.
Yeah, agreed.
That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, that's great. Exactly right information. I've had teachers do that too, more as a countermeasure. And in some ways, that's the fundamental flaw with trying to learn how to sing through videos, because that guy can't see what you're doing. He can't give you that kind of feedback. He's just giving you a general principle. John's had enough voice lessons to know those nuances as well. So that's why I say these are great, nice to poke around a little bit, but if you're really into it, you should be working with a professional. Okay, so let me go back and I'm going to switch over to a video, ironically, from the same guy in a minute that shares something similar to that point that John was just making. My sound, right, good. Okay, so I'm going to finish this up in a minute.
5,
Come on back in. I'm going to do a few more too.
6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. If that was difficult, feel free to pause the video and take as long as you need to get the hang out of feeling that movement in the abdomen from the breath. And remember, we're not muscularly moving the stomach, but we're breathing it out, okay? Now, the whole stomach belly breathing thing is very normal amongst voice teachers and vocal students. And if you've taken voice lessons before, you've probably heard of it. But what often goes unnoticed is the back. It's just as important, if not more important. The back muscles have to release in a fashion similar to the abdominal, so you want to get a movement there. This will help to immediately release the throat, and it also helps to release the diaphragm fully.
That one's huge. If you're not feeling expansion in your back, you're never getting a full breath. We usually, I think, stop at about my take on it, stop at about 70% of capacity before it starts to become a task, where we have to expand muscles. So if your back is expanding, that means you literally are getting a full breath. You are ready for COVID if you take a breath that deeply. So I'm going to switch over to like a later one that he's doing. And he's just talking about something that John was mentioning, that there are other kind of factors involved. And he's talking about his shoulders. And then he switches over to those support muscles I was talking about, which you could refer to as the pelvic floor. They're the muscles, well, they're powerful muscles. Let's leave it at that. Here we go.
I don't want you to dislocate your shoulders, but just let's do it one more time. Reach, reach. It's that simple. That simple. Make sure nobody's in front of you, because if stuff gets on, it's embarrassing. You get that. Okay, so let's try that again. Lift, lift, lift. Good. Last one.
I'm going to do this too.
Hip sockets. Your pelvic floor has more to do with your singing than a lot of singers are aware of, than a lot of voice teachers give credit for. We tend to think of the diaphragm as being like a stomach thing. And the muscles of your abdomen do help control the diaphragm. The muscles of your torso help with the diaphragm a lot and help to stabilize it and control it for singing. And the pelvic floor is a part of that torso muscle family that helps your diaphragm to do what it has to do. So if we're tight in the hip sockets or in the knees, it again causes a chain reaction of tightness. So a simple solution is we're just going to do a slight bend. So the same way we did the shoulder drop and then going up, we're going to you're going to kneel down. So body goes down, voice goes up. Almost like being in a ballet class, only I might not be that graceful. So let's do it again. And starting from down and working our way on up. That's all we're doing. All right? Even if yours sounds weak, even if your voice sounds like it's starting down here and then it goes into like a little high voice, that's weak and detached. If it goes into a detached falsetto, that's okay. Just keep practicing it. Make sure you don't squeeze this. All right? So again, all right? Now we're going to go from head voice to chest voice. So we're going to start up here and then work our way down here. But we're still going to bend down. Why? Because I don't want you to think of reaching up for high notes, because it's a surefire way to clench muscles. When we brace ourselves for high notes, when we tighten up in anticipation, then we tighten up. That's exactly what we do. I said it wrong. We tighten up in anticipation. I don't want you doing that. I want you to think of releasing. Let yourself sink to the floor for the high notes. Let your voice go down with your body. Head down into chest voice. And again.
Okay, so so you can tell this kind of stuff is really quite basic. If you were going to do something a little more, calisthenic, shall we say, then maybe one of these others might be somewhere you could go. So let's check out what this she's doing.
Guitar Center's President's Day sale with deals like $300 off a Gibson Les Paul.
Today I'm gonna nice, not tight and nasal E, but try to keep the jaw relaxed so that there's pharyngeal space for the E also.
So, it's just vocalizing. It's what we do in a warm-up every day, except she can't hear you. So please make sure you keep that in mind. Okay, so coming back to my main document, let me see if I can sum up this bit about the inhalation, especially the inhalation part. Your breathing muscles, which are basically, in my mind, from the belly button to the sternum, your breathing muscles are the ones that expand when you inhale, but you can keep them engaged. Where am I at here? Support occurs below the breathing muscles. That's right. So down at your waist, below your belt, those support muscles can stay engaged while you're inhaling, so that they're already in place when you start to sing. So that bit about the belly moving, the belly button moving forward, but the lower abdominal muscles staying in, that's what we're talking about. So that when you start to sing, you just turn the voice on. You don't have to get those muscles back into place. So this also applies to your rib cage area too. So when you inhale, your rib cage will rise, but what you want to make sure you don't do is let it collapse while you sing. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see my body again. So in this case, we're talking about the rib cage a little more. And when you inhale, you will see some rise here and in the shoulders. Just a bit, yeah? And so when I sing, I get tighter and tighter as my rib cage collapses. It is supposed to do that, but when we sing, you should exercise the ability to keep it elevated, keep the ribs expanded while you're singing. So basically, you're using an inhalation muscle for exhalation purposes, yeah? So keep the rib cage elevated. If you just find the bottom rib, touch it, and then inhale. Sing your exercise and keep those ribs up. And the abs will close in underneath and provide all the support and all the energy you need. As long as you're not crunching and adding tension to your voice as you go, then you're going to, again, be as efficient as you can be, which is the goal. Let me come back and finish this little section off, and we'll be able to take stock. Okay, so basically, I'm asking you to think about the way that you breathe a little more fully. Think about how your support muscles come into play. Think about how your rib cage comes into play. We've talked about this in rehearsal a lot, and there's a lot of information out there. You'll have to investigate a little bit. There's a few more that I'm finding interesting. I don't know that I've invested much time into them enough to be credible, but I find it interesting here. So singing through a straw seems to be the new trend for voice teachers, and it may indeed be useful. What I'm finding in a little bit of research is that when we sing, this is something I knew from other places as well, but when we sing, there is always a bit of pressure coming back into our larynx. So this is with the straw, but the idea is that if you push your lips forward and make a slightly smaller opening, as classical singers tend to do, you create a bit of positive pressure above your larynx. They call it back pressure here. And that back pressure actually helps to keep the vocal cords closer together, the vocal folds closer together. It helps them close so that the air you push underneath is kind of put under more demand. So you have to push a little harder from below while you're getting a little bit of resistance from above. And that balance between the two forces can be balanced, shall we say. So let me look at it this way. There are a bunch of videos of people showing you how to sing through a straw. It's literally as simple as put a straw in your mouth and sing. And because the tube of the straw is so skinny, it restricts the airflow, causing you to have a little bit more pressure above the larynx, yeah? So this back pressure in the vocal tract is a huge contributor to vocal fold vibration. It makes your vocal folds vibrate more easily. Without the vocal tract, the vocal folds would not be able to sustain vibration. So you couldn't, without a vocal tract, without a throat, you couldn't sing through your larynx. Excuse me. So when your mouth is partially closed, or in this case, wrapped around a straw, more of the pressure from the vocal folds stays in your throat. And this makes the vibration a little easier. So here's the science pictures that always please me so much. If you have, oh, I had that backwards, I'm sorry. So if you have positive pressure up here, it helps the vocal folds to come apart again, apparently making it easier to vibrate. And when you have not enough pressure, if your mouth is open too big, then the air just escapes and you're left forcing all that energy into something that's not ready to receive it. Okay, that's a little confusing now that I'm looking at it again. Another view on that makes more sense to me, that you achieve some sort of balance when you have these two forces equalized. So let me stop sharing again for a second, and you can look at this link yourself if you're curious about it. I don't know enough to be authoritative, but what I do notice right away is that singing through a straw, which I was experimenting with earlier, creates the exact same effect as pushing my lips forward like this, which we tell you to do all the time. You are lengthening your vocal tract, creating a bit more of that positive pressure and taking the edge off the larynx. The alternative, it seems to me like you're gunning your engine, but your wheels aren't actually touching the ground. You're doing it for no good reason, adding wear and tear to your engine without getting anything out of it. Whereas if you have that traction from the lips being pushed forward, you get more bang for your buck. So you might be curious about that. I would like to know more, but I don't, to be honest. It's a new one for me. I lost my page again. 1 second. Oh, there's a chat. Oh, yeah, basics of upper tone, indeed. Okay, so back to my share for just a second and my document. So breathing, we could talk a lot about posture. There's a lot of lessons about how to stand up straight when you sing. I just need you to know that posture is part of good breathing. So if you're arranging your body and practicing breathing, your posture is a huge part of that. It's also an important part of how you make your vowel. So the way you hold your head, the way you lengthen the back of your neck, the way your head balances on top of your spine, all those things are going to make it either easier or harder to sing. So these ideas of breathing and support kind of expand and blend into other areas, like how you hold your shoulders, or where you're carrying tension in your neck, or how you're aligning your spine. So again, these are concerns that you could bring into play as much as you're able to. The last of these is legato is easier than non-legato. So when you're singing, if you can sing with a nice healthy legato, it's going to be easier on your instrument. It's not to say that you won't sing difficult stuff, because obviously you will. But the objective here would be to start out small, right? To start out and rebuild your endurance and your strength. That bit with the straw is a different trick. It's like training you to do it right, so that your muscles will then have that memory built into them when you resume singing on a more regular basis. That theory's been, the straw thing's been around for 10 years or so. The breathing and support has been around forever. Legato is easier than non-legato has also been around forever.
Hey, John Eric, could you
Yes.
demonstrate the straw singing?
Sure, I can try. I've got some straws to choose from.
It looks strange.
Well, so the idea again is that you're narrowing your exit tube for the air. So if you were to just do it without a straw and purse your lips really tightly, you can get a lot of resonance with almost no effort. So that's not the same as the straw, which will sound a little different. But it forces me to sing with less raw energy. It forces me to balance things out in a way that I find interesting. I don't know that it's an answer to anything, but depending on the type of straw you use, a thicker straw, shorter straw has less resistance. Feels much more natural in my throat. The straw that's a little skinnier, like I have to sing in a different way to find a balance. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what to make of it, but for me, I'm finding that there is that interesting sense of feedback in my throat. When I sing through a straw, I'm feeling things differently than I had before, and that's telling me something. I just have to figure out what that means. And there again lies the danger, because the more you start investigating and fiddling around with your instrument, the more you run the risk of ruining something. No, I don't think that's true. If your voice is working healthy, then knock your socks off. Go explore some stuff. Go do something weird. Worst thing that can happen is you have a little sore throat tomorrow. If you're really struggling, these things are not the answer for you. You need to help. You need to get some help from somebody that can hear you sing and give you feedback. Don't go, doing self-surgery on yourself, and don't go trying to teach yourself how to sing in a new way. Feel free to explore. Feel free to experiment. That's my advice on that. All right, I have one more pile of stuff to throw at you. Some thoughts to bring this all home, and then we are out of time. Any thoughts or comments at this point? One of the things I know I'm going to be asking you is do you have any like studio language that you'd heard in the past that turned out to not be true, like things like sing from your diaphragm, which doesn't actually mean anything and isn't even possible. But studio musicians know what that means because we've heard it and been taught that to interpret it a certain way. I'm curious if you have any myths or mysteries about vocal endurance and stuff like that. I'll come right back to you though. So hold your thoughts on that. Okay, back to my document. So as with anything that's presented to you online, this is not a manual or anything authoritative. These are just some thoughts I've had on this subject. And like I said, if you're curious, go for it. You might figure something out. You might learn something about yourself. But if you are vocally struggling, if it doesn't feel right, don't go messing around with it. Go talk to a professional. Questions, confusions, suggestions, anything that was mysterious to you. One that I always struggled with was lung capacity. For the longest time, I believed that lung capacity is just what it is. You fill up your lungs with air and that's what you've got. It's more about how you use it. And I've discovered that that's not exactly true. So for me, the myth that I busted lately was thanks to this guy. Oops, I stopped sharing, sorry. Oh, let me see if I can get that window back. There we go. Thanks to this guy. So the book is called Breath. It's written by a guy named James Nestor. And he started trying to, look, he interviewed with Joe Rogan. Huh, so your conservative friends can read it too. But he did some research as a journalist into free diving, people that dive down deep underwater for like 10 to 12, 13 minutes at a time without any equipment. And it doesn't even seem possible that people can do that. But yeah, we've seen that before. So how's that even possible? It is true that those people are breathing in more air, but it's also the fact that they're processing that air even better. Nah, there's nothing good in here. I thought there was like a table of contents that was helpful, but I can't find it now. So anyway, I got a lot out of this book. I've been doing some breath work on my own. Another thing you could do if you're interested in learning about breathing is do some yoga or any other sorts of breathing exercise rituals. You get a lot out of that. Anybody have anything else that they could share? Anything that was weird that they learned when they were in college, or something they never understood?
Question, John Eric.
Yeah.
Tenors in their low range are sometimes told to keep it still up in the sinus cavities, as opposed to trying to reach down to a range that's not comfortable. Is there technique thoughts behind that? And is that still valid advice?
Yeah, I believe it is. Tenors don't need to pretend to be basses. And if a tenor is spending the bottom 10% of their range trying to sound like another instrument, then they're not really using their instrument for what it's built for. So a tenor can, but why would you? You know, why does the flute try to play below a middle C? You don't. You can try, but it won't be any use to anybody. You see what I'm saying? It's a biological function of the instrument. So if you want to misuse it, you can, but there's just no purpose for it. That said, there are a bunch of second tenors who are actually baritones. And in that case, by all means, you should explore that range. Good comment.
I hope you weren't looking at me when you said that, John Eric.
No, Brian, you're a first tenor at heart. I know that. So the one that I always heard was sing from your diaphragm, which literally is impossible. Your diaphragm is only used for inhalation. So, you know, right there, the science does not agree with that phrase. But what they mean is sing with support. Sing with energy from below the diaphragm. Allow the diaphragm to do its work and then cooperate with it and use the surrounding muscles to make that work. Nothing else? I thought I'd hear some good ones.
John Eric, I did have a question that I put to you a couple days ago in an email.
Yeah,
specifics about how to survive the last 3-4 pages of the piece we're working on and still sing beautiful.
It's grueling, isn't it?
It sits right in the break of my voice for far too long.
Yeah, and at a very high dynamic level. So the primary thing is what I presented earlier, that if you don't have support, you'll never get there. So you've got to take care of that first. I found it very helpful to work backwards and plan my breathing. So if I could sing the last 2 pages effectively, I did that. And then I tried to do 1 page before and work out how my breath capacity changed over that time, where I had to really be disciplined about good breathing and good posture, where the notes really pushed me in a direction I wasn't prepared for. So by working backwards, I kind of built in endurance for the last lap, so to speak, so that when I did the first half of the song, which was very easy on the voice, the last half wasn't quite so bad. But it's a challenge. It's taxing. I don't have any good answers for you other than that. Anybody else? Especially you tenors, it was up there. Okay, so let me wrap up here with 2 links for you. And they're both on the document. I don't need to share that with you, right? Oh, I do need to share it. Always the sharing. Okay, so here is just a simple WikiHow. This is fine. If you're an amateur singer and you've not had voice lessons ever, or maybe in a long, long time, this would be a great place to go. There's some stuff here that I just don't put much time or thought into. I do not maintain a singer's lifestyle. I know I don't drink enough. More hydration. I know I don't do that. I do not rest my voice consistently, but I should. I don't smoke, so I'm doing that right. And I do not maintain a healthy lifestyle. So that's all wasted. But this stuff down here is really the technique stuff that I do spend some time thinking about, learning about how the breathing works, learning about how to hold your body, right? Pulling your breath down. That's an interesting way to look at it. Breathing, 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 breathing. And then down here about warm-ups and stuff like that. So, you know, if you need some basics about how do I keep going, go here. The rest of this is really quite interesting, and I wanted to leave you with it so that you could play with it. So this is completevocal.institute. And once you get here, I got 55 seconds. If you scroll all the way down to, there it is, I lost it. Almost there. To sound colors, there's all these different, sorry guys. There's all these different different ways of singing, 35 seconds, different sounds. And if you were to try to imitate them, you would discover a ton about your voice. So this guy sings with his throat closed. But this guy sings with his throat open. So if you just experiment with those, you will learn how to keep your throat open. This guy sings with a high larynx. This guy sings with a low larynx. You can experiment with those. Okay, I'm out of time. We got
sort of software generated feedback version that Julie got from her ScoreMuse software. But I will work on Chris to develop these other ones. He's only just gotten the whole group together, so.
Yeah, we really need the individual ones. We only have a few weeks. So if he needs more pushing from other people, you can send us all his email and we'll start pestering him.
Yeah, well, I can't even start learning this until I get that because I have no music. So
right.
Julie's score is very helpful. That was very helpful, Julie.
Oh, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I couldn't separate the soprano and alto stuff, but yeah, at least you're hearing 2
What are you gonna
voices
do?
instead of all of them.
Yeah. It'll work.
Have the gentlemen returned? They should be back.
Do we need to wait for them?
Nope, they're
No.
here.
Okay, everyone. Then I'll see you at some point. Check your messages that I'll send in the next day or two about what's going to happen next week.
have a good week, everybody.
Okay.
Bye,
everybody.
Bye.
Bye. God bless.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Patricia.